My mother-in-law nearly ruined my baby's life when she tried forcing him to drink unpasteurized raw milk, so I called the cops and what followed left her reeling. While working late in the living room, I heard alarming sounds from the nursery and discovered my mother-in-law endangering my baby's safety. I am a 26-year-old female who recently had a baby with my husband of 2 years, Liam, a 28-year-old male. Our son is almost 4 months old now, and I've had a hard time training my husband to be a dad. So far, he does everything I ask him not to because he doesn't believe in what the internet says or, sometimes, even what the pediatrician says. He goes by his own gut instinct, which is very wrong most of the time, but he's too stubborn to admit he knows nothing about babies. I had to force him to stay away from the baby after the first time he put our son to sleep on his stomach because, apparently, he looked more comfortable that way. I've never left our son, Ron, alone with him, and for good reason. He was mad about it the first couple of weeks but then got used to it. He would still try to give me advice and make me follow it, but I'd shut it down quickly. It was annoying to deal with him, but he was my husband, so I knew I had to make the best of the situation somehow. I didn't want to leave him over some petty mistakes he was making as a new dad, but now I think I should have. 3 days ago, Liam told me he had to leave for a business trip but told me not to worry because he'd already asked his mother to come help me with the baby. Liam's mother, Judy, a 52-year-old female, had come to see the baby several times before, but she was also really annoying to deal with because she was just like her son. She believed that whatever she had done while raising Liam and her other kids was the only right way to raise a child, and everything else was rubbish. She tried to school me constantly, and it wasn't helpful at all most of the time. She definitely wasn't my first choice. If I had the option to pick someone to help me out, I would have picked my own mother to come live with me during the week Liam would be gone. I told him to tell Judy about it, but he begged me to let Judy come instead. He said she really wanted some time with her grandson, and this would also help us bond. I didn't like that idea, but he was so insistent that I had to agree. At least Judy didn't have nonsensical and dangerous ideas like Liam did, hers were just outdated. She believes that picking up babies every time they're crying will spoil them, and that's just one of her ideas. It's not dangerous, but her advice sure can get on your nerves. I was willing to put up with it for Liam's sake, so I let Judy move in for a couple of days until Liam came back from his trip. It's not like either of them was much help anyway, so it didn't make a difference to me who stayed. She came over the other day and was tolerable throughout the day, which was a pleasant change from her usual know-it-all attitude. Around 11 p.m., I put Ron to sleep in the nursery and went to the living room to get some work done while he slept. He'd been sleeping periodically the entire day, so I knew he'd be up in an hour or so. In the meantime, I wanted to complete some work I'd left for later before my maternity leave. At night, before I went to bed, I planned on feeding him if he got fussy and then putting him to sleep in the crib in my bedroom. I had the baby monitor on the entire time I was working and kept checking the screen from time to time to see if he was up or not. Unfortunately, after a while, I got distracted with work and forgot to check for a few minutes. Then I suddenly heard some sounds from the nursery, and when I looked at the baby monitor instinctively, I saw Judy lift Ron up in her arms as he was fussing and try to calm him down. I was about to walk to the room when I noticed Ron's feeding bottle sticking out of her pocket. I made a run for the nursery. I had told Judy several times that I was the only person allowed to feed him and prepare his formula, so I didn't know what she was thinking. I assumed she was trying to bypass me and feed him herself, so I rushed to the room to stop her. I entered the room just in time, grabbed Ron from her arms, and put him down again because he'd stopped fussing. I asked her what was in the bottle, and she said she'd mixed water with cow's milk so Ron could try real milk for the first time. Any new mother knows it's not okay for a baby to drink either of those things, and on top of that, Judy went on to tell me it was completely safe because the milk was straight from the farm and hadn't even been pasteurized, so Ron could build immunity. I was horrified and asked her why she thought any of this was a good idea. She explained that Liam had called her for this purpose to help make Ron a stronger baby because he was afraid I was mollycoddling him, and that would lead to weaker health and immunity in the future. I stared at her for a few seconds and let the fact that my husband had put her up to this sink in because it was beyond ridiculous. I told her to get out of the nursery and also my house because I didn't want her help anymore. She left the nursery but refused to leave the house and said she wasn't going to abandon her grandson with me. She called me incompetent and said I was spoiling Ron and that the way to prevent him from becoming a weak and sickly boy was to feed him the harmful concoction she'd created with raw milk and water, both things that could seriously harm Ron. I grabbed her by the arm and dragged her away from the nursery before telling her to get out once more. That's when things got ugly, and she physically pushed me to get me out of the way. There was a bit of an altercation between us when she pushed me away, and once I managed to get her out of the way, I ran straight to the nursery, locked myself in with Ron, and called the police immediately. As long as I was in the room, Judy kept screaming at me at the top of her lungs, blaming me for making Ron weak and useless. She was also really mad about me grabbing her to remove her from near the nursery, and we both received quite a few scratches while trying to get the other out of the way. I'm thankful for the baby weight that made me heavier and harder to push, because otherwise, she would have easily taken me on. The police arrived about 15 minutes later, and by then, Ron was up and crying like crazy. I started yelling for the police to know I was the one who called, which agitated him even more. It took an hour for them to finally get the story straight, arrest Judy, and remove her from the property while she screamed at me. Only then was I able to attend to Ron. He's doing better now, but I was terrified for him the other day. The turmoil of recent events has left me rattled, prompting me to lock up my house and seek refuge with my parents. Right now, they're the only ones I feel I can truly trust. The incident with Judy, my mother-in-law, shook me to my core. It all unfolded the other night when she insisted on feeding my son, Ron, raw cow's milk mixed with water, claiming it would bolster his immunity. She said it was based on advice from my husband, Liam. When I refused to let her proceed, Judy's reaction escalated into violence, something I never anticipated. That moment was a stark warning about the potential dangers Ron could face if I stayed in that environment. It became clear to me that leaving was the best way to protect my son and myself from further harm. The very next day, Liam called, his voice tense as he asked if I had reported his mother to the police. I admitted I had, without a shred of regret. His audacity to question me after what happened fueled my anger. I didn't hold back, berating him for his reckless advice and warning him to brace himself for a divorce and the possibility of losing custody of Ron. I was firm in my stance that neither he nor his mother had any right to be near our son after their actions. Liam's response was emotional. He was on the verge of tears, insisting I was being unfair. He argued that his family only had Ron's best interests at heart and that any missteps should be forgiven in the name of familial love. He even accused me of escalating the situation by physically intervening when I grabbed Judy to stop her from entering Ron's nursery. His words felt like a weak attempt to shift blame, and I ended the call abruptly, unwilling to entertain his excuses or debate the obvious flaws in his reasoning. Reflecting on it now, I'm torn. Judy's attempt to feed Ron something so unsafe was a clear threat to his well-being, and Liam's complicity in encouraging such behavior only deepened my distrust. Their actions demonstrated a dangerous level of incompetence, if not outright disregard for Ron's safety. Yet, I can't ignore the fact that I was the one who got physical first. When I saw Judy heading toward Ron's room with that mixture, instinct took over. I grabbed her arm to pull her away, desperate to protect my son. In hindsight, that moment of physicality might have sparked her aggressive response, and I know it could complicate things in a custody battle. Liam's claim that I could have handled it more diplomatically stings because, in the heat of the moment, I didn't pause to consider a calmer approach. My parents, however, are unwavering in their support. They believe I did what any mother would do to shield her child and that I shouldn't feel an ounce of guilt. Some of my friends, though, caution that my actions could be used against me in court, urging me to tread carefully. The weight of this decision is heavy, and time is running out. Judy is no longer in the picture, but Liam is due back soon, either tomorrow or the day after. I'm grappling with what to do next, knowing that every choice I make will shape Ron's future. The thought of Liam trying to manipulate me into doubting my actions only strengthens my resolve. He's always had a knack for twisting situations to make me question myself, but this time, I'm not falling for it. Posting about this online has been a relief, a way to process the chaos and reaffirm my perspective. It's helped me see through Liam's attempts to gaslight me into believing I was the aggressor. I've taken decisive steps to move forward. After consulting with a lawyer, we're preparing to file for divorce in the next day or two. Thankfully, Liam's work trip was unexpectedly extended, giving me a small window to plan without his interference. I've decided to relocate to my cousin's house, a move driven by both practicality and safety. Her home is spacious, offering a comfortable environment for Ron and me to settle into. More importantly, Liam doesn't know her address, which gives me peace of mind that he won't show up unannounced. The process of moving again is exhausting, both physically and emotionally, but it's a necessary step to ensure Ron's safety and my own sense of security. Looking back, I don't regret grabbing Judy to protect Ron, even if it wasn't the most composed response. My actions came from a place of maternal instinct, a fierce need to shield my son from harm. Still, I'm aware that the legal road ahead will be challenging. The incident with Judy, combined with Liam's refusal to take accountability, has made it clear that I need to prioritize Ron's well-being above all else. My parents' unwavering support and my cousin's offer to take us in have given me the strength to keep moving forward. As I prepare for the next chapter, I'm determined to create a safe, stable environment for Ron, free from the chaos and manipulation that have defined these past few days. The divorce filing is just the beginning, and while the future feels uncertain, I'm ready to fight for what's best for my son. I filed for divorce a couple of days ago. Liam returned from his trip yesterday and happened to be served on the same day, coincidentally, so that's lucky. I blocked him a couple of days ago right after filing for divorce, so he couldn't talk to me online, but he did what I'd expected and headed straight to my parents' house. He couldn't find me there, but he did get into a fight with my parents when they refused to tell him of my whereabouts. Apparently, he yelled at my parents for quite some time about how they'd raised me and criticized their ways of parenting, which had led me to be so selfish. Today, he also brought up how I'd been physically aggressive toward Judy and said that if he'd done the same thing to my parents, I would have been all up in arms about it. I don't understand how that's a fair comparison because my parents are not a threat to our child like Judy had been, but I guess he can change the narrative whenever it suits him. Judy didn't even get in trouble apart from a slap on the wrist, and she was out within hours, thanks to her brother who bailed her out as soon as he heard of her situation. My parents were very upset about his visit and called me to inform me that I was doing the right thing by divorcing him because he'd been very disrespectful to them. I think for him, this is more of a tit-for-tat situation. Since I'd been disrespectful toward Judy, he thought he needed to do the same to my parents without any reason. My parents weren't involved in this fight, but he still went out of his way to trouble them. I'm just relieved that I'll be done with him soon, as long as he doesn't contest the case. I don't think he will, but he certainly won't be okay with me having full custody of Ron. Currently, my lawyer and I are putting together every bit of proof we can to prove that Liam is not a capable father. There's already the incident with his mother, which is bad enough as it is, but then there's all the things he'd said over the last couple of months over text, all his bad and dangerous advice. Additionally, there's also the way he barely helped me with the baby, not because he didn't want to, but because he was just so incompetent that I couldn't let him do anything for Ron in good conscience out of fear that he'd screw it up. And it was with good reason. It wasn't as if I was just being too paranoid. He legitimately was just that useless and stupid. I don't even know how I looked past all of it for the first few months after Ron was born. It was probably the postnatal hormones messing with my brain, but now that it's clear to me how pointless it is to stay with a man like this, I'm getting the heck out of here. He did respond to my divorce petition, and thankfully, he isn't contesting it, but he does want full custody of Ron, not even partial custody, full. He's not even willing to let me have visitation rights, which is a very bold move given the circumstances of our divorce. He really needs to get a better lawyer or maybe just tone down the egoistic side because there's no way any sane judge is going to let him and his crazy family take over Ron's well-being. Ron is with me as of now, and since Liam can't find us, he hasn't been able to come to see him either. But as far as I know, he's been bothering my parents with incessant phone calls, texts, and unannounced visits almost every other day. When he called my dad the last time, he was warned that if he bothered them anymore, he'd have to deal with the police, which is why he's backed off for a while. But I'm not sure how long that'll hold up. Any big update in the custody battle or divorce, and he'll be right back to harassing my parents because that's who he can contact. We're meeting a mediator for the settlement negotiations, but that's the last of my concerns right now because we're also going to meet another mediator for our child custody case. I definitely do not want it to go to court, and neither do I want to lose Ron, but I can't think of any scenario where he and I end up on the same page regarding Ron's custody. Both of us are entertaining it as just a formality before the actual court battle because neither of us wants to come off too aggressive here, owing to the situation we're in right now, where all this trouble has even come up because of our aggression when it comes to parenting Ron. At least my anger is justified, and I'm not just acting like an idiot without knowing the facts and basics of child safety, unlike him and his mother. My cousin has been great and very helpful during this time and gets along well with Ron too. She's working from home and makes big bucks, so she's been generous enough to take over some of our other expenses too, like our share of groceries, baby food, and other supplies like diapers and stuff. I can't thank her enough for it. In fact, my family has been supportive of me during this time in general, and my parents have been coming over to visit me and Ron as often as they can ever since we moved in here. It's nice to be taken care of and not have to deal with a bunch of babies. Liam and I had our first mediation meeting today about the divorce. He wants the house, and I'm okay with that because it had been a wedding gift from his mother anyway, so he can have it. We're negotiating on the rest of our belongings right now, except for my engagement ring. I'm keeping all my jewelry. I wouldn't have returned that either, but it's a family heirloom, so I'm giving it back. Besides, the less I have of him to remember, the better it is. It was weird to see him after so long today and be separated by a bunch of lawyers, a table, and loads of paperwork, then act like strangers. But I had to force myself to remember what this guy had put me and my son through so that I wouldn't go soft. I'd left Ron with my mother, which happened to be a lucky coincidence because, as soon as we were out, Liam stopped me and asked me very formally if I'd let him see Ron today. I had to decline because I didn't want him to follow me home or something, and he looked crestfallen for a second, which made me feel awful. But soon enough, he was back to being stony-faced and walked away without even a goodbye. I don't feel good about any of this, but it has to be done, and I'm the one who has to take a stand for myself and Ron if I want things to go my way in the future. I drove straight back to my parents' house after the meeting to see Ron, and he'd been fussy without me, so I came back home just in time. The poor guy had been giving my parents a really hard time. It's been a few hours, and I have come back to my cousin's house. She wasn't able to look after Ron today because she had to attend a work party, and it was important for her to be there. But I think I'm going to ask her to watch Ron for the next meeting. My parents are getting old, and I don't want to bother them with every little thing now. The next meeting with Liam is regarding Ron's custody, and that's definitely going to be a lot more emotionally taxing than this because of all the things that are going to come out of it. I haven't even thought about child support yet, to be honest. My lawyer has put forth a demand for it, but truthfully, I think I might take that back because it doesn't feel right to take money from Liam when I know I'm not going to let him have any involvement in Ron's life. So, I might change that. Plus, I make decent money myself, and once maternity leave ends, I'm right back to work, so I don't think I need child support either. I'm not taking alimony either. It's all been really helpful, and it feels great to know that there are a lot more people rooting for me than I believed initially. Especially now that the custody case is going to court because, at the very last minute, Liam decided to change his mind and cancel the mediation sessions because he wanted the case to go to court for a more fair and unbiased verdict. I don't know what he thinks is going to happen because, as far as I know, no judge in their right mind will rule in his favor after they find out what happened the night I left his house. He and his mother had very obviously tried to put Ron in harm's way, be it intentionally or not. But it's better for me this way because then we might be able to get this over with quickly without waiting for us to get on the same page for ages during our mediation sessions. I haven't heard from Judy since the day the police took her away that night. My parents told me that they learned from a couple of common friends that she's living with Liam now to take care of him, which makes sense because Liam never was one who could take care of himself and live on his own. Now that I'm separating from him, it just feels so weird that I used to babysit this man-child while juggling work and household chores. All he would do is go to the office, come back, and ask me to help him out with his chores too. It wasn't even as if my work was less strenuous than his. Both of us were corporate employees with desk jobs, so it was definitely equal stress for both of us. But for some reason, I was doing both our jobs at home. At least after Ron was born, he had the decency to hire a maid so I could ease up on the workload, but he refused to do any additional work himself apart from whatever his job required him to do. I loved him a lot, so I stayed with him and didn't think there was anything wrong with how we were living. But now it just seems ridiculously unfair that I allowed him to treat me this way. In a way, I have my son to thank because, had he not been born, Liam and his mother never would have revealed just how stupid they really are, and how I'm better off without my husband. Being a single mom's going to be hard, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier being a mom to my son than being a mother to my husband. That's something I'm sure of. And word to the wise, ladies, learn from my mistakes and get out while you can. It's been a while since I've come back on Reddit. I celebrated getting full custody of Ron last week, and I'm about to get back to work in a few days. Things have been hectic, but I'm getting back on my feet now. I probably won't be active here anymore, so wish me luck, you guys.